Now that we've explored the tabular presentation of Table 31.5 on page 611, let's look at its graphical presentation using Figure 31.6 on page 612. So I've taken the liberty of producing the basic graph to show us how this blue 45-degree line, again, indicating that any level, for example, up here at that 550 level of GDP, and the 550 level of aggregate expenditures are equal to one another, and so what would therefore be called equilibrium. Let me go ahead and add those axes titles again real quick, just so it's easier for us to see what exactly we're plotting. So we put GDP again on that x-axis, and then we're going to go ahead and put aggregate expenditures here on the y-axis. So what we want to do with this is look again how the introduction of both the public, meaning government sectors, and an open versus private, meaning a multinational or international economy, affects GDP. So if we look, for example, right now, we see an equilibrium at the 410 level when that 410 level represented the private closed economy for us. So let's see whether or not it is actually increased when we add in the entire two additional sectors. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my chart, into the charts design, and I'm going to select new data, and I'm going to add some new data. And we're going to call this one C plus IG plus X sub N plus G, which we call aggregate expenditures. And the X values that we're going to use would be all of our different GDP levels pre-tax. And then the Y levels are the Y values that we're going to use will be our aggregate expenditures when we have all of our sectors of the economy represented. So let's go ahead and plot that in and see how now I need to make sure that the data gets in there properly. It looks like we missed a couple of points here. This has been happening to me lately a couple of times in Excel where I'm pulling up the Y values and it's only giving me the one. So let's just tab through and make sure it plots them all. Okay, so there we go. So now we have an entire gray line in there, and we know that the gray line represents then aggregate expenditures. I'm going to go ahead and delete the legend for the time being so we can see the data values a little bit better. And look indeed now where we had at previously an intersection of 410. When we add in the gray line up here, and I'm going to take off this set of, oops, I took off the whole graph there for a second. Let's take off just the data labels in here. Look at what indeed has happened now that we see at the 490 line. I'm going to take off these other data labels down below just so you can see here is where our new equilibrium point has gotten itself into, is the inclusion then of that public sector and the government has now given us a 490 intersection point. And that, again, graphically displays for us how the introduction of both that public sector and then the international sector allows for an increase in GDP, which puts more people to work.